Right, so Prime Minister Modi there, accompanied by the Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohammed Soli, meeting a host of dignitaries on his arrival in the island nation. Remember, this is the first foreign visit by Prime Minister Modi as part of his second term as the Prime Minister. He's meeting a number of people who have arrived there to welcome him to the island country. This is going to be followed, of course, by an address to the Maldivian Parliament, the Majlis, by Prime Minister Modi. This is going to be the 11th time, if my numbers are correct, that Prime Minister Modi is going to address a foreign parliament. Now, the relationship between the Maldives and India had taken a bit of a downturn under the administration of the previous president, that is Abdullah Yameen. Before that, too, India had enjoyed a strong relationship with the Maldives. During President Yameen's time, it was seen that the island country was pitching towards Beijing in a very strong fashion. In fact, it wasn't so subtle either in many instances. India was also concerned about the sort of treatment that was being meted out to a number of Indians who live in the island country. Now, of course, we've seen a complete policy change under the new administration under President Soli. The Indian Prime Minister was, in fact, in the Maldives late last year, to attend President Soli's swearing-in ceremony. This is now the first visit by the Indian Prime Minister as part of his second term in the role. He is in Malé this Saturday evening. There's a packed schedule ahead for him, not just this evening. He's in the country tomorrow as well, after which he's going to be headed off to another island country, this time Sri Lanka, for a quick visit there as well. Ambassador Sajjana continues to be with us on the broadcast. He's in the studio with me. Also joining me is our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal. Ambassador Sajjana, to you first. The address to the Parliament, how significant is something like this, especially for people who are watching WION right now, who want to understand why Prime Minister Modi's visit to the Maldives is significant, but also his address to the Parliament is an honour in many ways accorded to him?
It's a measure of respect, and I don't think countries invite foreign leaders to address their parliaments. It's not something of a routine matter.
Right.
It's not in normal course. It is only when you wish to signify the very deep strategic strength of the partnership and the relationship that you will invite a foreign leader to come and address your parliament. And this is an opportunity that is offered to the foreign leader to really speak to the representatives of the people. So that means to establish a connect and a rapport with the people. And, when we were talking earlier about these people-to-people contact.
Yes.
So I think this is something, that is an opportunity that will be given to the Prime Minister. And, like you said, he used that when he was addressing the U.S.
Yes.
Congress in 2016, when he said, India has overcome the hesitations of history.
Yes.
And he also said, that a new symphony is at play as far as India-US relations are concerned. I think we are going to hear something of a similar nature as far as his address to the Parliament this evening is concerned, because India and Maldives have always been very, very close together.
Yes.
There are cultural, civilizational. Before Maldives became an Islamic country, it was a Buddhist country. From the time of Ashoka, from 3rd century BC, it has been a sort of, well, not exactly a nation, but a group of islands where Buddhism was predominantly, yeah. So whether it is spiritually, or it is historically, or civilizationally, or cuisine, or customs, traditions, there is so much of similarity. After all, it is just about 1,000 kilometers from the Indian border.
Yes.
So not only in security terms, but even in people-to-people terms. And that
Absolutely.
is why we find that, many of these projects that are going to be taken up, in addition to cricket and in addition to the proposed ferry connect between the two countries, the projects are those which are going to be high impact, which are going to, people are going to be able to immediately witness and realize and recognize the difference that is going to be made to their day-to-day life. Water supplies, sewage treatment,
a whole host of
housing, infrastructure. So I think that is what is really going to have an impact, and I think the Prime Minister is going to, he's a master communicator, so
Indeed.
he's going to be able to communicate very well and tell the people as to, you know, the depth of feelings and affection and support that Maldives enjoys in India. And, you know, so this interregnum from 2013 to 2018, you know, was some sort of, you know, it's an aberration.
Yes, it was a blip of sorts, and
Yes.
it's over now. And I think India and Maldives are perhaps over that speed bump, if you want to call it that. Siddhant, of course, the ambassador sketched a very beautiful picture with us when he talked about the cultural connect between India and the Maldives. It's a historic link in many ways, dating back to the 3rd century BC, if you will, and something that is going to find renewed strength perhaps in the 21st century. Given the fact that you know, India has made a concerted effort to re-establish perhaps a lost relationship that lost its way for a while but seems to be back on the right track. India, of course, sends a lot of tourists to Maldives every year. It's a favorite destination for honeymooners as well, given you know, its scenic beauty and the fact that it is a stone's throw, if you will, from India.
Well, yes, there is a lot of cultural connect, historical connect, traditional ties, and of course, India has played a vital role in the Maldivian history. Well, in 1988, India launched Operation Cactus. It was launched by India because there was a coup attempt in the country, and for that, India was lauded by many countries. In fact, that was the height of Cold War, and whether it's Soviet Union, whether it's US, or whether it's UK, all of them lauded India because of the quick thinking by the government back then, and since then India has been in some way helping out Maldives, but Maldives' role, crucial role, has come about now with the increased presence of Chinese in the region, and that is why Maldives is important for India. In fact, India is working with all the Indian Ocean countries under a grouping called the Indian Ocean IORA, that's the Indian Ocean Region Organization, and there has a meeting happening almost biannually, and of course every year there is a meeting. In the last meeting which happened in South Africa, the former Indian MOS VK Singh participated, and through this grouping India is engaging with Maldives and rest of the Indian Ocean region countries. So there are various ways to connect, and now the importance of Maldives has increased more so for India, especially after what happened under Yamin regime.
Absolutely, and Ambassador Sajjanar, I hate to, you know, sort of veer away from India and Maldives in the specific, but ever since President Trump has come to power in the United States, we've seen sort of tectonic shifts taking place in terms of global foreign policy, the way countries are dealing with one another. There are a lot of Twitter conversations that happen between heads of state today as well. In the last 5 years or so, have you found also that the importance of regional blocs have become extremely important for a country like India to rely on not just its neighborhood, but really speaking the Southeast Asian region, South Asia itself, and of course reaching out to countries like Russia through the SCO? We've seen India solidify its presence and its relationship with these countries because, as I mentioned before, it's no longer a bipolar world, it's definitely multipolar more and more.
Absolutely. You know, I'll just like to make 2 points here. You know,
Sure.
What you said very rightly also. One is at the level of political, security and strategic considerations and relations. And the other is at the level of economic relations.
Yes.
So, you know, as far as economic relations are concerned, if I were to take that first, India has always been a purist. India never sort of believed in having these regional FTAs, etc., etc. So we depended upon the GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and then the World Trade Organization. But of late, we have seen that, you know, under the WTO, whatever negotiations under the Doha round, Doha International, they are not making any headway. So all the countries are going for these regional FTAs. So India also willy-nilly has gone into it, whether it is, you know, what is known as the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement,
Yes.
with Southeast Asia, etc. Or whether it is, you know, we are trying to push greater economic coordination and cooperation amongst BIMSTEC countries or BBIN countries. So that is on the economic front. Yes, we are sort of, so Act East policy is a very, very important element of that. The other is on strategic relations. And strategically, what we have found is, rather than having sort of, bilateral engagements, India has now got into strategic alignment. It is not that you are either aligning with one country or another country. You are aligning with a different set of countries on the basis of different issues, specific issues. You would recall that when the G20 meeting took place in Buenos Aires, then, Prime Minister Modi, he met Trump and Shinzo Abe under what he called the J format, Japan, America, India. The J format, which also stands for, he said, success, meaning, of course, it could be translated as victory also, but he said it is success. He also met under the BRICS format with these, also met under the IBSA format. So I think it was India which was a constant presence in all these groupings, because we want to position ourselves so that we can cooperate and collaborate with as many countries as we possibly can. So here we are member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We are members of BIMSTEC. We are members also of SAARC. Of course, it is not getting anywhere because of Pakistan's focus both on terrorism and also its negative approach as far as, any of the issues that are discussed on the SAARC. But India is keeping, we are also members of IBSA, India, Brazil, South Africa. We are also members of RIC, at the Foreign Ministers. So we want to leverage all these possibilities to advance our interests. And I think in that we have been extremely successful, because even if you would just look at India's relations with countries in West Asia, for instance, I think India would be about one of the very few, if not the only country
that has good relationships with everyone.
With Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, Qatar, with Israel, with Syria, with all of them. And I think, not only across the sectarian divide, but also across, religious divide. Shia, Sunni, Shia, Iran, Sunni, Saudi Arabia. We have excellent relations with Egypt also. So I think our diplomacy has been adequately nimble-footed.
And yet robust, because it has given us the opportunity of, tiding over relationships, sour relationships between, for instance, Israel and Palestine. India stood by Palestine in the UNSC, and yet it has seen, a great relationship develop under Netanyahu with Prime Minister Modi. So you rightly pointed out that we've seen a very nimble-footed approach, and yet one that has given India the advantage of, approaching whichever country through a plethora of different forums. We'll have to leave it at that for now, gentlemen. I'd like to thank both Siddhant Sibal and, of course, Ambassador Sajjanar for sharing their thoughts with us. We will continue to, of course, look at Prime Minister Modi's visit to the Maldives. It's time for a very quick break here on WION World is One. We'll be back just after that. See you then.